Hi, Scott DeVore here, founder, CEO, DeVore Capital, here with the COO, Wes Deason. We're going to talk about a topic that gets overlooked, ventilation. I don't know if you've seen a house in a neighborhood with a brand new roof and then it looks completely jacked up. Probably ventilation was not considered in that. So Wes, I'm going to basically turn it over to you. I want you to talk about our approach to ventilation and give your thoughts around, why we do what we do, why we make the recommendations that we make.
Without a doubt, most of the homes that we see where the roof hasn't been replaced in the last 15, 20 years, the roof is underventilated. It's a huge problem in Florida. The building code allows for a minimal amount of ventilation and to pass code. So the houses get built. They get those long boxes called an off-ridge vent, or you might even get just a regular sized box vent. Or I've seen old-fashioned whirlybirds still on a house, and the wind's got to spin them to even get them to work, and they're all rusted out. Minimal amount of ventilation to do a huge job, which is to keep your attic cool and to keep the moisture out. Besides the fact that heat kills, and since we get so much moisture and heat in Florida, we see roofs wear out a lot faster than maybe they should in some cases, where the shingles start to blister, they start to crack, and that's just from the sheer amount of heat transferring through that decking system because it just cannot adequately ventilate the way it should. Working with us at DeVore Capital, one of the conversations that we're definitely going to have with you is, should we add or increase your ventilation? Yep. 9 times out of 10, the answer is going to be yes. And, a preferred method, off-ridge vents, they work, and we could add a bunch more if we needed to your house. But over time, they oxidize, they get dented if something hits it, then you get the streaks underneath your roof that you see, and you're not sure why. Preferably, we feel that a closed off decking system with what we can call a continuous ridge vent is your best option. And it's just, you've probably seen it on the top of the house where you got this little housing right on the top there. I'll get you in the screen there, where this sits on the top of the house. And you got a ridge cap that goes over the top of it. This is just a piece of a ridge vent that's going to be laid over on the entire peak of your roof, covers the proper length. We'll do the calculation. And this is another thing that happens in our industry. Somebody will say you need ridge vent, and you'll go great, and you'll get the whole ridge covered in ventilation. And there is such a thing as adding too much ventilation. It's kind of like when you open a window and your front door at the same time, and if you get it just right, it'll slam that door shut. But if you open the extra window, then the door just sits there, doesn't move. There's a proper amount of push and pull that needs to be able to happen. And we do that calculation for you. We let you know if you actually have enough ridges to properly ventilate. And if not, we give you some further options. There's even solar venting these days and a lot of different things that could be possible.
Yeah, absolutely, Wes. So one of the other important things is the cosmetic look of a ridge vent. Now, off-ridge vents, as you said, if the calculation is right and you have enough off-ridge vents, you're going to meet the need, for the requirement for what your roof's needed. But what a on-ridge vent would do, it basically eliminates all the, extra components that you have coming out of your brand new roof system. Talk a little bit about the look of a ridge vent.
Well, I mean, aesthetically, it's just better. Instead of having metal boxes up there that are going to streak, and there's lots of reasons why those streaks happen. You'll probably now go out and you're going to look at the back of your house, and you're going to see that 6-foot metal box back there, and you're going to see that it's either dirty or clean underneath. Believe it or not, it's actually clean underneath there, and the rest of your roof is what's dirty. Those streaks happen, and it just doesn't look attractive. You got a nice brown roof, and all of a sudden it looks light brown, looks dark brown, and it changes colors because the oxidation's coming off of that, off the compounds within that metal ridge vent, and it just washes down your roof, and over time it's gonna cause those streaks. Besides, I've seen dents in those boxes because just a tree limb hits it, and so when we're talking aesthetically, the number one thing, by the way, that a real estate agent will tell you that sells your house is your roof and the way it aesthetically looks, the color of it. And when you've got a ridge vent up top there with the ridge cap shingle that goes over the top, these things are pretty indestructible. I mean, granted, you don't want to go up there and step on them because you'll actually crack the ridge cap shingle, but you can't hardly damage these things. These things are, hard plastic. They're designed with a baffle so that things don't get stuck in them, so they can properly ventilate. When you're talking about the aesthetics of that roof, it actually looks really nice to have those ridge vents up there. And we also look out for the aesthetic part of that, because sometimes you'll have a ridge, but it doesn't serve any purpose for ventilation, but we'll still place a ridge vent on it to look, aesthetically correct with the rest of your roof, where you don't just have one ridge without it and one ridge with it. So
Yeah, like
there's
if
so
you
much
have,
stuff.
yeah, like if you have a hip roof with a bunch of gables where you have, one nice long ridge and you have your gable system going out. Sometimes if you do a ridge vent on the big ridge, at the peak, it may aesthetically, you have to match that on the gables to put some ridge vents on that too.
A dormer over a window, and it doesn't serve any ventilation purpose, but it looks really weird when it doesn't have, and everything else has it, and you don't have one there. The cost of it is also a really good benefit for you as a homeowner, because it's not that expensive to upgrade to better ventilation, and compared to the longevity you're going to get out of it. So not just the cost effectiveness, the way it ventilates better, the longevity it's going to add, the aesthetic. I mean, the list is kind of long as far as why we would recommend to go to a ridge vent system, an on-ridge vent system, compared to off-ridge or some of the other options that are out there. But once again, it just depends on the way your roof is shaped and if it can properly ventilate, with those calculations to add that. And if not, we're going to come up with some other options for you to still discuss being able to ventilate your roof correct.
So we're big fans of ridge vents, but I'm going to ask you a question. I already know the answer. Are you a fan of hip vents?
No.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Our master rep from GAF, we have these conversations all the time. So, you've got a long ridge and then you've got your hips, and or actually, the opposite, where you have a really steep roof. It comes up to a really short ridge, so that it's not a good idea to ventilate, because it's really not going to help you. It's not going to give you what you need. And now they make these actual ridge vents to go down the hip all the way down. And studies have shown that, one, that doesn't really work very well. It doesn't adequately do what it needs to. It can cause leaking and different issues because of the angles. There's just a lot that we wouldn't recommend as a company to you to do hip vents. So, definitely if somebody's told you, you might, let's get some hip vents on there, do a little bit of research, give us a call, talk to us about the do's and don'ts, the pros and cons, if you will. But yeah, no, I would never add hip vents to a roof. So you're right. Yeah, we wouldn't do that. Ventilation doesn't sound like a huge topic or a huge something that people should keep in mind when they're replacing their roof, but it is something that we definitely need to talk to you about, something that you definitely need to think about. And when you're going into that roof replacement, contact us or one of our sales consultants that are educated to be able to go through that with you, discuss all your needs that you need to get you properly ventilated, properly taken care of, so that hopefully you replace this roof and it'll be the last one that you need for a super long time. Definitely check us out at DeVoreCapital.com, or check us out on our YouTube channel.
YouTube.com at DeVore Capital.